Hey there! So if you are watching this video, you're probably in the thick of college applications or you're just curious. Either way, I commend you for doing research, and I am here to tell you about how I got into Stanford, or at least how I think I got into Stanford, or basically what my application looked like, and yeah. As a disclaimer, I really have no idea how I got into Stanford. I wasn't there when they were reading my application. I don't know what they liked and what they didn't like. So it's just kind of me telling you what I put on my application and kind of the story that I told about my life. And so I guess I should briefly touch on grades and scores, and just to put it in a few sentences, I was a competitive applicant. I was always at the top of my class, and I always took the hardest classes, and I really challenged myself because I really did put academics first. And for scores, I was also in range, and I worked and studied for that. But again, standardized tests and grades are not the reason I got in. They're just kind of showing that I can handle academics and juggle other things at the same time. And so going into extracurriculars, I guess I should start with something that I had been doing since I was 6, which is classical piano. I'm going to briefly touch on this because it's not like my whole application, it's just one part. Basically, I had started piano ever since I was 6, and I competed in a lot of regional competitions, and I won a bunch of them. Very tiny, like 15% of the people who compete win. But I guess the biggest achievement I did in piano was winning a state recognition, which is called panel. So in California, if you want to go to like a higher level and you want to compete at the state level, you go through 2 rounds. One's a regional, one's a state competition, and you have to memorize like 6 pieces. You're playing in front of a bunch of judges, and they're writing all these comments, and I remember working so hard for that one competition, and finally, after 11th grade, I passed it, and the judges actually clapped for me when I finished that audition, and I was so happy. But basically, after I finished that competition, I quit piano because I realized that it's not sustainable, it's not my passion, and I just didn't see a future in it, and I wanted to spend my time on things other than piano. So I had a moment of realization within myself, and I realized that piano was something that I was kind of guided into as a child. I kind of just stuck with it, and I was like, I'm gonna achieve, so I'm gonna do it. But that's not really where my passion is, and my passion is really in photography and filmmaking. So I guess I should talk about photography first. I had done it since I was 6, basically, also like piano, for fun, basically. Like my dad was a photographer for his college, and he had all these cameras. Like I remember there's all these antique cameras in my house, and I had just grown up with my dad really into photography, and so I kind of got into it too. Whenever I had the opportunity to take a photography class in high school, and even now in college, I have taken all the classes that I can that have to do with photography. And I would always look for competitions to submit my photographs to. Things like Scholastic Art and Writing, which I won a few awards for, and even like just random things. Like I would Google like photography competition, high school, and then like the University of San Diego had a competition that I won, and I just wanted to get my photographs out there, and I wanted to have them judged. And I also sent in a portfolio to Stanford. I have a photography portfolio from my high school work, about 12 images, and I submitted that to Stanford. I actually submitted it late, so I had to print out the photos and mail it to them, so I'm not sure if they actually got it, but I did that. And I guess the biggest award that I got was a Scholastic Art and Writing Award at the national level. I actually got to go to Carnegie Hall in New York and be recognized for the award that I won. I actually have the photograph here. So this is the photograph. I took it of my brother. It was just like him staring angrily into the camera. This took like 40 shots to take because he kept laughing, but I can do a video on like all the photographs that I submitted for my portfolio. Here's another one. It's kind of just like a paper thing that I made, and I shined some lights on it. I guess another thing that I did with photography was I joined Aspects, which is the art and literary magazine where students submit their art and writing and photography and sculpture and all that stuff, and they submit it and we review it, so I was the editor of that magazine. And I think a big part of my application was the fact that ever since I was 12 and I watched BBC's Planet Earth, which is which is basically a nature documentary. I have wanted to be a nature filmmaker, a nature photographer, a nature cinematographer. That has always been my goal, and that's kind of what I'm pursuing right now. TBD. That kind of shows in like the photographs that I did. This is my first like nature photograph talking about conservation, and it is not very good, but I think it shows that I really had a passion for pursuing this as a career, and that I cared about the earth and wanted to use my camera as a mouthpiece to help save the environment. So this is basically people throwing away trash, and it's going all the way down to the ocean. Like, it's like not well edited at all. It's really cheesy, but it kind of showed like 10th grade me really wanted to do this. And another big part of my application was filmmaking. Like, in addition to doing photography, I really was into filmmaking. I took Film 1 class, I took extra classes like on my own and did a lot of research. I actually attended the USC School of Cinematic Arts to take a summer documentary class, and it taught me all the skills to make this 15-minute long documentary about a Vietnam War veteran who has been through absolutely insane situations, had to kill a bunch of people, and was really traumatized. And I kind of talked about how he went from really going for the war and like, we're doing this for democracy and whatever, and then realizing that he's hurting the people that he tried to help. And so that's something that I talked about in my application. I also was a part of the robotics team as the filmmaker and photographer, and so I made this video that we submitted to a competition that if you win that competition you get to go straight to World Championships. And so I made that video, we ended up winning, and we ended up going to World Championships, which is really exciting and really cool. And another thing I did was, my dad is a cardiologist, and he has a bunch of old patients. So one day he would just randomly ask them like, what were you doing during World War II? What were you doing during the Vietnam War? And then they would have these incredible stories. So a few weekends a month, my dad and I would go to their house and I would film them telling their story and my dad interviewing, and I would have all these films of them telling their incredible stories. Like, I met one guy, like I met the Vietnam War veteran who I made a documentary about. I met someone who got a Purple Heart on the beaches of Normandy. There was a guy with all this like memorabilia from World War II, like all these flags and coins and like a pocket knife. Just incredible stories that I was there to witness. And I realized that I could use my camera to connect with people and to record pieces of history that are so important. And then since my dad is a cardiologist, I would also film him talking about heart conditions like atrial fibrillation, and I would help make informational videos for his patients. And I was doing this all because I just really liked being with the camera, being behind the camera, connecting with people through the camera, and I think that really showed through the actions that I took. I wasn't doing any of this because I wanted to get into college. I was doing this out of genuine interest and passion. So if I were to sum up like the big parts of my application, I would say I just really enjoyed being behind a lens. And the way I crafted this in my Common App essay was basically, I was diagnosed with severe myopia when I was 5. I could barely see anything. And then I kind of found vision, new vision, through the lens of a camera. And I started taking photographs and putting meaning behind my photographs, and then photographs kind of shifted to filmmaking, and I started telling stories, and all this is to become a nature cinematographer and use my camera as a way to save the environment and inform people of what's happening with the environment and climate change and all that. Yeah, so I was definitely a girl who was interested in a lot of things and showed that interest through doing a lot of activities that related to my interest. And so if I were to give any advice to anyone, is to just be genuine and pursue your interests. Don't try to cookie cutter yourself into this perfect applicant, because it really is obvious when you're not being authentic or genuine. People are looking for people who have an interesting story and who are going to go out in the future and do something positive for the world. And so yeah, that's basically my advice. Don't be someone else. Just be yourself and shine, and it'll all be okay. You're gonna end up where you're supposed to be, and you're gonna make the most of your situation. It's the person who you are who creates the experiences that you're gonna experience in the future. Don't worry too much, have fun, enjoy life, don't stress, and yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I can talk about like anything else about the college application. I could read my essays, like anything that will help you guys I think is a good idea. So I will catch you in the next video.